Hey guys, Furum here, and today I'm going to be testing the Italdesign Zerouno at max in multiplayer in Asphalt 9. Divo has also given me some races in his 4-star one, so please consider subscribing, and I hope you enjoy the races from both of us. So my car is maxed, except for most of the epic import parts, because I don't have many for this car. I think I only have one on top speed and nitro, but this car is one of those ones that got forgotten extremely quickly, because it had no particularly amazing, nor any particularly bad quality. I remember that my previous video about this car I called like magnificently mediocre or something like that, just because it looks nice and it's okay-ish to drive, but just nobody really talks about it or thinks about it anymore. So I finally managed to 4-star it after buying blueprints for it in the Legends store for the past few months, ever since this car came out in the Rimac event, I think it was. And so yeah, here it is at 4 stars, and we can see how it does in Platinum League, where I'm testing it, and in Gold League, where Divo tested it. In this race, we're in Platinum League and facing a lot of A-class cars, such as a LaFerrari Aperta, a couple of SVs, a couple of Nismos, a P1, and the lone other B-class car in this race, which is a Sin R1. Now, unfortunately, I take that turn a little poorly coming into it, which allows this Aventador SV to pass me. I accelerate just about as fast as he does, but while he's able to get to a higher top speed than me, he goes off the ramp a little bit weirdly. I'm not exactly sure what happened there, but he wrecked on the trees, thus allowing me to pass him again to come in first place in this first race. If you do not have this car, it can be compared to the Ferrari 488 GTB in terms of overall performance, with perhaps a bit of stiffer handling. So basically, low to mid-class B, but if you drive it right, as with a lot of Class B cars, most of them probably, you can beat a good lot of the higher-end A-class cars, because as I've said previously in videos, Class B and Class A, especially the upper two-thirds of the classes, are very similar in terms of overall performance. While of course the A-class cars are better overall, the B-class ones are very close, and you don't really get that kind of dynamic in between any other classes in this game, or really in many other Asphalt games. I suppose in Asphalt 8, the A-class and S-class were kind of close toward the top because you had the super high top speed cars like the SLK at the top of A-class, so I suppose you could consider that sort of the same way. It's just something I've always found interesting in this game, and in that one too, I suppose, if you count that. Here, I drift a bunch before the barrel, because this car's nitro efficiency is not particularly good. It's not bad, just mediocre, and the Huracan that passed us back there went into a bit of trouble on that little hill and went over to the left, and thus were able to get a bit ahead of him. But then we have a McLaren P1 coming up behind us. I made a video recently about that car at max, which is one that a lot of people had been asking for since I never did it before, even though that was one of the first cars that I actually got in Asphalt 9 other than the normal original ones, but we're able to pull ahead of him toward the end there to come in first. Unfortunately, I have some not so great news about the Jesko event. Now, every final round ends at like 4:45 a.m. for me, which is smack dab in the middle of me sleeping. So what I usually do is I wait until midnight or so to do my run, and then go to bed and wake up the next morning, and usually not much has changed. So the night of the final round, number 7, I somehow managed to get a really good run on Whirlwind Curve, which is not a very good track for me, by the way. I'm not very good at it normally. Somehow there it worked really well, and I got half a second better than everybody else that had done so far. And when I woke up the next morning, I was still at number 1. But there was a problem. Before then, I was at 200 points, and someone else was at 205, and we were at 3 and 4 position or something like that. Anyway, what happened was I got 50 points out of that, he got 45, and so we both ended up at 250 points, which was exactly enough to tie us for 3rd place. Now, what you might not know, or maybe you have if this has happened to you, but if you have people who are tied for points, the person who gets put ahead is the one with the slightly better qualification time. And he had a slightly better qualification time by like 7/100ths of a second or something like that. So all that to say is, I ended up at number 4 instead of number 3. Kind of frustrating as you might expect, given that now I only have about a 50% chance to get the car instead of a 100% chance after spending 24,000 tokens on it. So that's an equivalent of 800 real US dollars. Anyway, I'm going to try my best and open my 35 packs, which have a 2%. And someone explained in the comments of how the probability for that actually works. So there's a 0.98% 50% to not get it. If you multiply that together 35 times, you get about half, subtract it from 1, and you get half. You might not understand how all that works, but essentially I have about a 50-50 chance to get the key in those 35 packs. So we will see what happens. I'm hoping that RNG looks kindly upon me whenever I open these packs, probably tomorrow or whenever it finishes, because they had like 3 days of time before actually letting people claim their stuff, which kind of makes sense. It gives them time to look through and see if there's hackers and stuff like that. But my group, since I was in Tier 2, I didn't really have any hackers in mind that I noticed. I'm pretty sure most of the hackers were in Tier 1, because they were able to get really good qualification times because of that and all. But I think those were cleared out. I'll keep you guys posted on what happens, and if anything interesting happens, I'll definitely make a video about it. So here, we passed this SV at the very last second, allowing us to come in first when he was just like right next to us the whole way, and we actually tied with him at the exact same frame. That doesn't happen very often in Asphalt 9, at least not with me actually coming out on top because of it. And now we're on to Divo's races. Now his, I think, has 1 or 2 less epics on it, but for all practical purposes, it's basically the same car. Now he was in Gold League, so he's facing cars more like the Viper here, and you can see the Corvette as well. So I suppose this is kind of more of the circumstance where most people who use this car in multiplayer will probably use it. I can't imagine many people using this car, choosing it in Platinum League, unless they're just really bored. Platinum League is usually when I get bored in Rush Season, because, well, it's only 2,000 rating from Gold to Platinum, which isn't terrible, at least in the recent seasons. It's like 4,000 from Platinum to Legend, so that's why I do not usually go for Legend, unless I really want to test an S-Class car for some reason. But I haven't really needed to do that recently, so yeah, that's why I usually do not go to Legend League, and I almost always focus so much more of my effort on the second season, which right now is the Egoista season. I'm not planning on making a video about that because I already made a video about my Egoista at this rank, so there wouldn't be much new to talk about at all with that, but we'll see what happens. Usually the only times where I revisit old cars that I have at the same rank is if they've been nerfed or buffed, or say for example in the Fenner season that happened a while back. Anyway, it was the first Ghost season, so that was a new thing that I wanted to show, but rarely will I ever make just a random second video about the same car at the same rank if nothing has changed. Now, the reason I did the P1 one was because I had never done that car at 5 stars before, so that one definitely made sense to do. Here, it looks like Divo is being pushed around a bit by all these cars, but we'll see that this race turns out to be quite close in the end. In some other news, the Scion event has now begun. Now, people have told me like half a dozen different ways in the comments to pronounce that, so I'm just going to stick with that one and not change it, because no matter what I do, people are going to think it's something else. That car requires the most blueprints to unlock that I have seen of any car in Asphalt 9, requiring 85. And the thing is, while it is a really good car, like it's better than the Batista, for example, it's not a king, and so if it would require a ton of tokens to get, I can't really imagine that most people are actually going to, especially since it's coming on the tails of the Jesko event, which I would assume that most people probably spent the majority of their tokens on, unless they had tens of thousands, in which case maybe not, and they'd have a better chance of getting the Scion. But I've only got about 2,500 tokens now. Thankfully, the Scion daily event gives a lot of tokens. Like, I could get 750 for the Veneno, like 500 for the Terzo. Many Lamborghini cars you can get a lot of tokens for. And if you go to the shop, you can see that Scion packs actually unlock at a certain number of conditions rather than being required to unlock the car. Now, maybe that is hidden in there somewhere, like you can't really unlock the car until you get that number of conditions to begin with, but at least we know, because before we never really knew, like there was never any indication inside the game when you would actually be able to buy packs for cars. Sometimes it was after you unlock them, sometimes it was after 2 or maybe 3 stars. It seemed kind of arbitrary, but now we at least know for sure. So people have said that this event looks pretty pay to win, while the Veneno event wasn't very much. That event was actually very good. This one will not be so easy, just so you guys know. But of course, I'm going to be trying my best to see what I can do to get it. I think I have a lot of Lamborghini cars at decent enough ranks that I should be able to do okay, so yeah, I'm going to try my best, but we'll see what happens with my limited amount of tokens. There's not really much to say for a general review about this car. It's pretty mediocre and average all around. Thank you all for watching, and thank you to Divo for these last few races. Please like the video if you've enjoyed, and consider subscribing for more Asphalt and other games content, and I will see you in my next video. Goodbye!